All right. Good morning, folks. Once again, this is Frank. Welcome you all. Let me see here. I think Nkuma. Okay, Nkuma is on. He's coming. He's all right. So, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We just want to say welcome once again. This is Frank, as always, host for the Revolutionary Repatriation Educational Lecture Series. Um, I apologize first of all. Sunday, we did not make it, but we're gonna be on this Sunday. So and Kima is here, so I'm gonna turn over the platform to him. To proceed with what we need to do.
Hey, peace, King. Peace. Yo, I'm struggling right now. So my computer is moving extremely slow, so excuse me. So I'm still trying to get some things together. But welcome everybody to another episode. Another podcast of We Charge Colonialism podcast and book club. We've been going, man, like 3 years strong, 3 or 4 years strong with this, man. So I'm happy that we're able to continue to examine these books and have these discussions as it pertains to African people and our work to advance our people, to liberate ourselves from colonialism, from the empire. Right, it's us against the empire, and that's always been the case. I think like this there has been a war. There is a war going on, but the war that has been going on since the first Europeans came and snatched the first Africans, and had taken them out of the continent to Europe or to the Americas. We have been we've been having an ongoing struggle to liberate ourselves, and a lot of our people have lost that sort of sense of urgency, the need for us to come together, to collectively come together to solve our problem, which is white supremacy, which is white political economic domination, right? So we got to have these conversations. We're going to continue to have it. Just where I'm going to put the link. Like I said, things are moving a little slow, but I'm going to put the link to the book in the chat. We're going to continue with Malcolm X's message to the grassroots. We started with Malcolm X's speeches and statements last week, so we're going to continue looking at that speech, discussing the Black Revolution versus the Negro Revolution, because the Negro Revolution is really reform, is really an elitist sort of struggle, struggle for opportunities within the empire. And though there may be many people who are part of that fight that are well-meaning and really think that this could be the path to really advance African people, the masses of African people never reap the benefits of these reforms. The masses, we're talking about material benefits. So with that being said, I want to pass it to you. I'm going to try to get some things in order
Okay.
and let you start off with your story.
All right. So, my story here. First of all, shout out to Dr. Haiti. She sent me this article. It's about Equa. Um, so let me pull it out. I think even though we talked about it last week, so we are going to share the update version of the story. So, um, so last week, the Economic Community of West African State or West African State met, and they tried to not even try, so they uplifted the sanction from Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, and then they restore the electricity supply that it took from Niger. So they said equal rapprochement with Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso face off far from over. So the rapprochement here, for me, I look at it as a nonsense, because since when have they realized that they need to make friends? Okay, They need to make sure peace exists in those countries than creating chaos. Since when did they realize it? This was the only man, this man right here. First of all, this is an old picture. All right. This is not the new meeting, because the new meeting, the, President George Manuel Weah is not supposed to be there because he's already an ex-president. He was supposed to be replaced with the new president, but he was not there. Again, the poor, Liberia went and elected a 90 years old man that have health condition. Of course, we know a 90 years old man in the United States here, you have to be sitting home or in some kind of grown home and then putting pampers and diapers on you. All right. So you have a whole lot of health condition issue and aging issue. So he's not here. So this is an old picture. So this old picture, this was the only man that stood against the sanction in how they call it, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. But I'm going to read the beginning here and then I'm going to skip because I don't have interest in the first part. So they said Nigeria President Bola Tinubu hardly took over as the ECOWAS chairman before he was greeted by, I'm not going to call him military, but I'm going to put it this way. Before he was greeted by the freedom fighter, okay, the liberator of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. So I'm going to go down because I have established what I wanted to establish. So let me see it here somewhere down. Let me see. I want to see where they lifted the sanction because that's what I have interest in. All right, so let me see here. So as we talked about it last week, this Gowon was, I think he's one of the last known founder of the so-called neo-colonialist ECOWAS. So he said Goa Wise Council was headed and sanctions were lifted. So this man, one of the last standing founding member of ECOWAS, he was the one after Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger drifted away and went to ahead to form their own alliances to work with one another. So one of the new founder of ECOWAS, one of the last standing member, came out and spoke with Bola Tinubu, okay, and some other prominent puppets of ECOWAS that listen, you guys are making mistake. So he spoke to them. So based on that, they went, they sat down, and then they uplifted the sanction. And then they said, for example, electricity supply to Niger by Nigeria has been restored, and similar bilateral and multilateral agreement between the three countries and the rest of ECOWAS, sorry, I need water, and the rest of ECOWAS has been similarly restored. All that is left is for those nations to reciprocate, which will mean coming back to the neo-colonialists into the fold and giving up on the notion of creating a loose confederation to compete with ECOWAS. When and how this will occur is still unknown. Now, I want to take this out to make my point because this is useless. All right, so now this is my point I want to make here, and my point go to the three nations, that is Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. They are freedom fighters. Now, the sad part about the African continent, and not only the African continent, but all black nations around the world. The sad part of this is that, let us be frank, all nations, all continents in the world knows their physical enemy except black nation. America know who her enemy is. Russia know who her physical enemy is. China know who her physical enemy is. France know who her physical enemy is. Germany know who our physical enemy is. I mean, all of these Western nations absolutely know who their physical enemy is. Even the Middle East, as we speak, they know who their physical enemy is. As we speak right now, the United States physical enemy, one of the physical enemy of the United States is South Africa. Why? South Africa took Asia to the RCJ, being that the United States support apartheid, Asia, so America see South Africa as an enemy because right after Asia took, let's say South Africa took Asia to the RCJ, and it have brought spotlight to the so-called Asia and the United States of what they are doing into the world or against humanity. And it exposed the United States and Israel. And then what the United States did, the United States saw South Africa as an enemy. And then the United States went ahead to put sanction on South Africa as they are planning right now. They are angry because South Africa took them to the RCJ. Now, look at this. Of course, we know. So let's say Israel will not be charged or guilty, because if that happened, it means a colonial nation. It means the oppressed have taken the oppressor to court and form the oppressor guilty. Then that means it's going to give some power to the oppressed. And that means it's going to open a gateway. Now, I'm leading this to Burkina Faso, Mali, right? But I'm taking it to South Africa, right? That means it's going to give some gateway to the black nation to wake up. Because imagine here, when Africa started getting independent in the 60s, it was because of the braveness of Haiti. Haiti led the way. A small nation, a tiny nation, a struggling nation led the way to the movement. So the fight of Africa, it always starts small and then it expands. It starts small and it expands. Now, if the United Nations, which of course we know they are not going to do it to find Asia guilty, because that will send a signal to Africa, unity, that look, then we can make it. We need to wake up. We need to do something. So what the United States is doing is South Africa is fighting for justice, for genocide committed against humanity. And the United States is angry, a country that claims to be the human rights advocate, but rather say the reason why they are censoring South Africa is because South Africa took Israel to the RCJ. So the United States have identified her enemy. And China know her enemy. Russia know her enemy. I mean, everyone know their enemy except Africans that do not know their enemies. In fact, Africans continue to make business, sign treaties with their physical enemy. And we're going to be talking about some of these tomorrow. Now, when ECOWAS realized that, you know what, we need to make peace with Niger. When did they realize that we need to lift all the sanctions? We need to give them current. When did they realize it? Oh, they realized it when, for example, Niger, their uranium were being sold for 250 pounds. But now they have taken state access and they are selling it with that same price, and the benefit is going to them. Meanwhile, France was selling it for 250 and then buying it from Niger with 11 pounds. 11 pounds. And then you buy 11 pounds and sell at 250 pounds. So the ECOWAS, they sat down there and they saw these things going on. Now, these freedom fighters came out and they are taking things into their own hand, okay, and seeing improvement. Because since they took over, according to World Bank report or War report, They are the fastest growing economy in the world in 2024. Why would they want to come back to ECOWAS when they were never in a category of becoming the fastest growing, how they call it, economy in the world in 2024? Nations that are under ECOWAS, they are not even among the fourth. But those nations, they are among the fourth fastest growing economy in 2024. And the nations that are under ECOWAS, a neo-colonialist, they are not among. Now, why they lifted the sanction, another reason why they lifted the sanction is because, look, they are still working with their enemies. They are colonial masters like the US and Europe. You remember when Nana Akufo-Addo came to Metro Anthony Blinken and told him about the relationship between those nations and Russia, they do not want Russia to be on the African continent. But if Russia is on the African continent and is giving freedom, is giving empowerment, and, is helping to liberate African people, so be it. We need Russia there. Because through Russia, these nations, they are about to build their own nuclear power, their own nuclear plant. America will never do it to empower Africa like that. Europe will never do it to empower Africa like that. In fact, they have been there since the 1600s. They came there in the 1600s, enslaved African. They came there in the 1800s, they colonized African. They came there in the 60s, they started killing African leaders. Up to today, what have they done? And then they exploit our resources. What have they done there? So these are nations that are drifting away. So in other words, their colonial masters have told them, look, they'll do this thing this way, lift out the sanction, and then beg them to come back. Because if the sanction is there, and then if you deprive them from electricity and all of these things, they will not come back and they will continue to flee. They will continue to go. Now, another point I want to make here is, then if ECOWAS can lift out the sanction and then give them the electricity, how they call it, supply and whatsoever, right? Then that means in reality, African leaders have been the one holding Africa captivity. African leaders are the people holding Africa captivity. You know it was wrong to sanction this nation. You know it was wrong to take off supply from them. You know it, or you knew it was wrong. So now, when did you realize that it was wrong? And then you came back to lift out the sanction and then gave them their right. So you are the one being holding the African nation hostage. Now, do you really want freedom? Do you really want unity? So you want unity. These people forming their own unification. They say we are not free. And then now you are coming back and you want unity. Since when did you realize you want unity? But to those African leaders, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, it is a trap. Do not come back to ECOWAS. Do not come back. ECOWAS is useless. Do not come back. It's a trap. Do not come back. Will not agree.
Hey, that's a good way to end it with that message. I think I agree with you. I think that they should not. If anything, these new have they named the federation? Is there a name that they use?
Yes, they name it AES. So yeah, they already named it as, I think it's called ASA, AES.
Okay, all right. But that, if anything, they should be developing the type of economic institution that is going to put Africa first, and it's going to have new rules, and basically anybody that they have been doing trade and business with has to come back, sit back down at the table with them, and these are going to be the new terms. I'm speaking about those who are outside of Africa, and then when it comes to African nations, they need to be building with African nations who's ready to develop their type of institution that is going to advance the masses of African people, the African continent, And so when we look at ECOWAS, I feel like you're right. That is a trap because it's going to go back. You're going to go back to business as usual, right? you're going to have to uh, go into an institution that has already been functioning, operating in a particular way, and it's influenced by outsiders. It's influenced by the European. They have a lot of influence in ECOWAS. And the reason being is because ultimately like this. It's a capitalist institution at the end of the day, right? And so the answers that they have for Africa is the continuing exploitation of the resources, right, and exploitation of the labor, right? They try to develop. They try to develop uh, this sort of, I guess you can say, buffer between them and the masses of African people, and they can say, I guess you could call it the middle class. I didn't want to use that term, but when they see that's how in this system, when they see more people entering that quote unquote middle class, then this is looked at as a success. And this is the European model, and so this is what ECOWAS and even I mean the AU, we have to call them out. Like these are the economic strategies that they have in place for Africa. So it would be a trap. I think like what they're doing now, uh, how they're able to capitalize off of, use that word capitalize, but how they're able to benefit off of their own resources, right? Disproportionately than other countries, than other people. This is the African way. This is the way forward, right? This is how we're going to liberate ourselves as a people. So no, but I appreciate this story. You made some other points too that kind of stood out to me. But if anything though, I think like we have to keep a close watch. Those who are in the diaspora need to be supporting Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali. We should be looking. We should be looking how we can be involved with some type of direct trade with them as well. This is how we build bridges and help Africa and help ourselves at the same time, because trade is goes both ways. So it's just something to look into. But yeah, appreciate the story. Did you have any other thoughts? Or?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think we can go right into the book. One thing before we move into the book, I just want to appreciate everybody for joining us for another episode of We Charge Colonialism. Make sure you like and share. I didn't say that in the beginning, so I'm gonna throw that in there now. Like and share. Subscribe to the channel We Charge Colonialism if this is your first time being with us, so you can get those notifications and know when we are going live. So I'm going to enter the try to. I put the link to the book in the chat. We're reading Message to the Grassroots. Just had it. Having a little technical issues, but you can get the link from the description. I gotta excuse me, having some technical issues. I don't want to take up too much time with that, but the book is in the description. Read Malcolm X's speeches and statements. I'm going to pull it up on the screen, and we're going to jump into it. I think this is an important topic because even what we see in Africa, we wouldn't categorize it as the Negro Revolution, right? But we could call it the neo-colonial revolution, right? Which is the same thing. 1 second.
And I think I got it. I believe those three nations, I trust them. I trust Abraham Traore. They are not going to come back. I trust those guys.
Yeah, hopefully not. And it's going to be a lot of pressure. But this is the thing. Just to make one more point on the topic. Again, there has to be, even with the creation of what they do in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, which I hope they'll do, but they're still a part of a global system, a political economy that's dominated by the European. They have been dictating the terms of trade, of economic policies, right, for a long time. With the structural adjustment loans in the 80s, a lot of African nations had to restructure their economy, which would benefit the West, which would benefit the West, which would benefit the rest of the capitalist world. It will open up the doors for corporations to come in without having to worry about high taxes, without having to worry about competing local with the local economy, right? Or well, competing fairly, I should say, right? Because Africa, we can as Africans, we're not scared to compete. But what happens is that the terms of the competition, or the rules of the competition, have been created by the oppressor and exploiter to in a way that would benefit them, right? So the rules are in their favor, and so what we need to do is create a system with new rules and impose our system, or have our system have influence on other people to want to be a part of what it is that we're developing. What we have with ECOWAS and other African nations, when we're trying to win in this system, we'll never catch up to the European. This is a European design system that has been imposed on African people. And so, we have to design our own. Okay, I got it on the screen. We're going to go through this. This is message to the grassroots. And I'm going to start right here. The white man knows what a revolution is. Oh, no, I'm going to go up and start here. So I cite these various revolutions, brothers and sisters, to show you that you don't have a peaceful revolution. You don't have a turn the other cheek revolution. There's no such thing as a nonviolent revolution. The only kind of revolution that is nonviolent is the Negro revolution. The only revolution in which the goal is loving your enemy is the Negro revolution. It's the only revolution in which the goal is a desegregated lunch counter, a desegregated theater, a desegregated park, and a desegregated public toilet. You can sit down next to white folks on the toilet. That's no revolution. Revolution is based on land. Land is the basis of all independence. Land is the basis of freedom, justice, and equality. The white man knows what a revolution is. He knows that the Black Revolution is worldwide in scope and in nature. The Black Revolution is sweeping Asia, is sweeping Africa, is rearing its head in Latin America. The Cuban Revolution, that's a revolution. They overturned the system. Revolution is in Asia. Revolution is in Africa. And the white man is screaming because he sees revolution in Latin America. How do you think he'll react to you when you learn what a real revolution is? You don't know what a revolution is. If you did, you wouldn't use that word. Revolution is bloody. Revolution is hostile. Revolution knows no compromise. Revolution overturns and destroys everything that gets in its way. And you sitting around here like a knot on the wall saying, I'm going to love these folks no matter how much they hate me. No, you need a revolution. Whoever heard of a revolution where they lock arms, as Reverend Cleve was pointing out beautifully, singing, "We shall overcome." You don't do that in a revolution. You don't do any singing. You're too busy swinging. It's based on land. A revolutionary wants land so he can set up his own nation, an independent nation. These Negroes aren't asking for no nation. They're trying to crawl back on the plantation. I'm gonna stop there, man. I think that's a good segue, man. I think like that's exactly what is happening, and I think it sums up what we're talking about when we are speaking about Negroes or neo-colonialism, people who are fighting or struggling to integrate into the former, in some cases the current master, depending on how you look at it, his house, her house, right, rather than build a house of our own. This is the mindset that we have to have. And many of us are trying to crawl back on that plantation. Maybe not with the same, of course, like not with the same terms as it was during slavery, or even what was that, sharecropping, right? We want new arrangements. We want to be able to live a bit more comfortable on the plantation. But being on the plantation is still being on the plantation. Somebody else owns it, right? They can kick you off the plantation if they want, right? They have the power to do so. They have, just like when you had on the plantation and what you had with slavery and sharecropping. One thing, an analogy I want to use is on that plantation, the enslaved, or the wage, the chattel, under the chattel system and under the wage system, they didn't own the means of production. They didn't own the tools that was needed, right, to cultivate those crops and to produce those crops, right? They had to get those tools from the plantation owner. And that's how it is under colonialism. If you look at, who controls the wealth under colonialism, right? Who controls the means of production and distribution under colonialism? So it doesn't matter, that we're maybe living more comfortable than we did as slaves, right? Even during chattel slavery, there was levels of comfort during chattel slavery, right? House servants, domestic slaves, house slaves, plantation slaves. Some slaves had better relationships with white folks than black folks. Some people were able to pay for their quote unquote freedom and live a marginal life during slavery, half free. I guess you can call it half free, but that's no such thing as that, right? They were still a slave. But I think that was an important point, like with the plantation. There was some other stuff he said too, but I wanted to see if you had anything.
Yeah, exactly. Look, we said this before, right? And I'm going to repeat myself again. Everything that the European, or everything that these colonizers or these imperialists are doing, it was told to them with one of their so-called economics, Adam Smith. All right. And this is what exactly they are doing. Adam Smith told them in the 1800s. Adam Smith told them, look, listen, if you don't want for the slave to rebel, okay, against you, you have to treat them right. Make them feel that they are worth. Make them feel that they are important. If it is meant for you to treat them, okay, to give them medical treatment, the way you treat your cattle when your cattle, are sick, the way you take them to the cattle hospital, and then you give them treatment for them to get well so that they can be able to till the soil. If it comes at that point, do the same thing with the slave. If you can have an hospital for them, if you can have clinic for them, because when you treat them right and they are healthy, that's how they will be able to produce. I mean, even if it costs you to sit on the same table and drink with them, do it. Because with that kind of mindset, they will feel that, wow, I am no longer a slave because I'm now sitting on the same table with my master and breaking bread and tea. So that's why he told them, he said, even if it come to a point where you need to sit on the same table to eat, do it. If it comes to a point where you need to eat in the same pan, do it. Give them that treatment. Now, if you give them that treatment, even if they are on a plantation working for you and producing, they will never know that they are on plantation, because if they see how their forefathers were being treated differently, inhumane, and then they are seeing their own treatment is different because they are on the same table eating, they are breaking bread, they are going for lunch, and, they are having breakfast, they are discussing how things should be produced, how many goods should be produced, and all of those things. They are also partaking into it. They will never see themselves as slaves. So treat them that way, right? And this is what Malcolm X, kind of freedom is not freedom. With that kind of liberation, it is not liberation, because you are still on a plantation. Liberation does not come, with mere talk. It is blooded. Freedom is bloodly. Freedom means take it by force. You cannot have a freedom and then you don't have a voice. And that's what Malcolm I was talking about. I'm coming, folks.
No, Frank was teaching. Yeah. I unite with that. I think what we can do. One of the practical things that we can do, and what we have been doing, at least some of us been doing, is building those institutions that speak to the need of nation building. Us having our own. We have to, no matter how small those institutions may be, they all serve as models of what we can do as a people. Whether you're teaching 10 children on the weekend, um, or you build your as a liberation school. Excuse me, I need some water too. As a liberation school, or you build your own school and maybe teaching 100, 200 children, right? If you're able to do that and be successful at it, take that model and show others how to do it. And then if we have others do it, we can collectively bring these institutions together. Because as a nation, to be able to build a nation, we have to have institutions. It's not just us coming together, and saying we're together. We have to have economic institutions. We have to have educational institutions, political institutions, right? Healthcare institutions, all of these things. So some of us who know, this is what's needed. What are we doing to put those things in place so that others can see? This is why the Panthers is such a great example, right? Because they were building these institutions. And even today, when we're talking about organizing, we always look at the Black Panther Party as the model, because one thing that the Black Panther Party was doing, they weren't just talking. It wasn't just theoretical with them. They were putting together the necessary institutions to serve the needs of the people in the community. I just learned about in North Carolina. I was at a panel discussion. I just learned in North Carolina they even created an ambulance service, man. The Black Panther Party established an ambulance service in North Carolina. And I thought I knew it all, in regards to them. So that's just, I guess you can never know everything, right? And that was just very impressive, man. So we can learn a lot from them. I think we do ourselves a disservice when we believe that some of these things cannot be achieved in our community, and it has to start in our community. We have to take ownership. Were you finished, Frank?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I can move on to the next section. With the last point, and maybe I'll circle back around to it, when he talked about a bloody revolution. And some of us need to stop using that word revolution. I think that's another thing that we have to come to grips with as well, because a lot of us is scared of that, and it doesn't necessarily. I think we have to think about what Malcolm means, right? And think about revolution. This could be, different. There's different levels, of revolution, right? That may take place. And even Malcolm said himself, that there's a chance that we can have a peaceful revolution, right? Which is highly improbable, knowing the European, because he would have to totally transform the system. And I don't think that many of them is ready to do that or want to do that. But we have to be prepared to go out there and understand, in order to bring about the change that's going to liberate us, there's going to be some people who are going to want to kill us. There's going to be some people who are going to want to take us out because of what we were doing. We've seen it in the past with all of our great organizers and leaders. So that's something that we have to come to grips with. And and if we're not ready to pay that price, then yeah, I think we should be talking about revolution. We just, it's just lip service at that point. So just understanding that, when we're talking about the type of change that's going to liberate African people, the European will be willing. He's going to be willing to take our lives, right? So that we won't achieve that, right? But then there's the other side, when we have to be willing, right, for them to pay the price when that happens. Never be the aggressor, never be the instigator. We want to, we could build this, but knowing that there's going to be a response to it, we have to be willing to defend that, right? And show that, we're not just willing to die, but we're willing to, take a life as well. So I just want to add that on. But yeah, so this next part, so when you want a nation, that's called nationalism. When the white man became involved in a revolution in this country against England, what was it for? He wanted this land so he could set up another white nation. That's white nationalism. The American Revolution was white nationalism. That's a fact, man. The French Revolution was white nationalism. The Russian Revolution, too, yes, it was white nationalism. You don't think so? Why do you think Khrushchev and Mao can't get their heads together? White nationalism. All the revolutions that are going on in Asia and Africa today are based on what? Black nationalism. A revolutionary is a black nationalist. He wants a nation. I was reading some beautiful words by Reverend Clee, pointing out why he couldn't get together with someone else in the city because all of them were afraid of being identified with black nationalism. If you're afraid of black nationalism, you're afraid of revolution. And if you love revolution, you love black nationalism. To understand this, you have to go back to what the young brother have referred to as the house Negro and the field Negro back during slavery. There were two kinds of slaves, the house Negro and the field Negro. The house Negroes, they lived in the house with master. They dressed pretty good. They ate good because they ate his food, what he left. They lived in the attic or the basement, but they still lived near their master. And they loved the master more than the master loved himself. They would give their life to save the master's house quicker than the master would. If the master said, "We got a good house here," the house Negro would say, "Yeah, we got a good house here." Whenever the master said "we," he said "we." That's how you can tell a house Negro. If the master's house caught on fire, the house Negro would fight harder to put the blaze out, than the master would. I said faster than the master would. If the master got sick, the house Negro would say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick? We sick." He identified himself with his master more than his master identified with himself. And if you came to the house Negro and said, "Let's run away, let's escape, let's separate," the house Negro would look at you and say, "Man, you crazy. What you mean separate? Where is there a better house than this? Where can I wear better clothes than this? Where can I eat better food than this?" That was the house Negro. In those days, he was called the house nigger. And that's what we call them today because we still got some house niggers running around here. So I'm going to stop right there for a second. There's a lot to unpack there. That's getting into the psychology of a lot of our people under this system. But an interesting thing, another thing to consider when we look at the house Negro, and I think the numbers are not as many as the house Negro. As far as with the house Negro, there's different types of house Negroes. I think we have more house Negroes who want to continue to be a part of this system. But I think you got another house Negro, which you would call a house Negro, those who go along with the system. But I think it's more so an inferiority complex thing where they don't think that they can defeat white imperialism. I think that they believe that Black people don't have the strength or the power to overturn the system. So they're trying to survive in the system the best way that they can. They could care less about, white folks, in which the other house Negro, they identify, they see themselves as them. We're all Americans, right? But it's the other one who, I think that's in that house. They just doing what they need to do to survive. And the reason I'm bringing this up too is because I was just recently watching Underground, and I was seeing how the house, the Negroes that was in the house, how poorly they were being treated as well, right? And how even one of the house Negroes, not just one, it was a few who were in the house when they were trying to escape. Like some of them house was like, "Yo, take me with you. I'm rolling with you," right? And I think that's something we have to consider. Like with the house Negro, you see this with the field Negroes too. A lot of times they're trying to be pragmatic, which they should, I get that, right? But we can't let pragmatism impede us from liberating ourselves. But I get it. So some of them, I was seeing had the psychology where, they were they hated their master, but if they did something wrong, it could cost them their life, right? They could be whipped, right? I was seeing, how they were being whipped too for just doing the littlest thing. I was seeing how the husband's wife would treat the house Negro, and not just the house Negro, but the house Negro's children as well, right? And the threaten the house Negro, threaten the house Negro by telling them, your child, if it's a boy, he's going to be good for the field, right? When he gets older. So now she's doing things that I won't get into what she's doing, but she's just doing things that are unethical, immoral, but she's doing that because she's trying to persuade the slave master to not put her son in the field, right? So I'm just like looking at all of this, man, and you see that dynamic. It was really interesting. But I think Malcolm is definitely speaking to a particular psychology that we have to deal with, and we see these Negroes, the most conservative Negroes, man. And what Malcolm, who said that was Dr. Amerson Wilson. What are you conserving? But go ahead. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, sure. You see, like what he's saying also there, right? We have them planted these days, and let us be frank here. The horse Negro are all over. Okay, and the horse Negro, some of these horse Negro are also educated now. All right. I mean, for example, you will never hear, African talking about climate change. But the moment the European or the colonizer come and say, we need to fight climate change is a global issue, then that's the time African will say, yes, it's a global issue. We need to fight, climate change. But climate change has been affecting Africa for so long, right? But once it have never been identified by Europe and America, it is not something to be accepted or to discuss. Okay? Now, for example, the conflicts in DRC Congo, that's a war crisis. That's a war issue that the world need to pay attention to. But because it have never been identified by Europe and America as a global issue that the world need to focus and look at, Africa and African people do not classify it as a global issue. They see it as nothing, or they just see it as, it is just those people in those parts of the world, legends, it's DRC Congo. In fact, they are different people, let them deal with it. All right, let them deal with it. But when the issue of Ukraine happened, the moment Americans came, Europe came and said it was a global issue. African took it as a global issue that need to be addressed. You see, the stuff happened in Sudan. It is a global issue. But Europe and America does not classify as a global issue. Africa have nothing to talk about it, and things. And the reality here is, in fact, when it happened, anytime these things happen in Africa, right? UN always says, we're gonna make sure there's a ceasefire for 2 weeks or 1 week, so that the European can get out, so that American can get out, so that foreigner can get out. Come on, man. And then we Africans. So what is going to happen to Africans, right? We are the one going to die because they're going to. So, in reality, who is actually creating a war? Because if we can say we're going to cease fire, and the ceasefire actually, because when a situation happens in Sudan, UN came out and said, we're going to cease fire for I think a week or so that foreigner can leave, European or American can leave. And they actually ceased fire. And after that, when the European or the American left, and then they continue with the fire, they continue with fighting. Who is controlling the war? And we Africans sat down, we agreed to these things, and that's the kind of horse Negro, Marco is talking about. Should we have to sit and wait for Europe and America to come and identify our issue as a global issue? Then before we look at it as a global issue. Because if we are waiting for them, they will never classify it as a global issue. They never classify Liberia as a global issue. They will never do it. DRC Congo, Sudan, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Le Sahel. I mean, look at all of these things. They do not classify as a global issue. And we will always sit and wait for them to come. So the host Negro, like he said, most of them, they are educated. I mean, they are not just living in the house of their master, but they also went to the school of their master and they learned the curriculum of their master. Therefore, they also become part of the horse Negro because they carry the ideology of the horse, how they call it, of their master. Even what we say here, some of those horse Negro, they don't like it because they went to the schools, to the greatest school, and they went to the end, they have all these scholarship from their master. So they are also part of the horse Negro. They only identify things that have been identified by Europe and America, their master. Once their master identify it, it becomes a global issue.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that comes from just centuries of indoctrination, being like you're born into, we all have been born into this system. So we don't know anything else. We just know the relationships that we have with the people in our community and with the people of the nation that we're a part of, like whether it's a political, economic relationship. And so we do a lot of these things out of habit after our psychology has been shaped, and so it's hard to think outside of the box unless you're having these type of discussions and being introduced to a new way of thinking. But with a lot of people, the way that this country or whatever nations you're part of, there's fundamental rules or laws that the nation is built on. And so, that becomes ingrained. And so as far as even with identity, it has been established that if you are born in any nation, I guess they have the same sort of similar citizenship guidelines. If you're born in America, United States, that's one of the ways that you could become a U.S. citizen, right? So with that being said, and people feel as though like, hey, these are the rules. This is what it is. I'm an American because that's what the rules say. But that rule was man-made. Somebody made that decision, right? It could have been a decision where they said, hey, the only people that can be Americans is people who were born here, right? But that's not the case. People can be nationalized. People can come from outside of America and become American citizens as well. So it's an arbitrary thing. That's the point that I'm making. And so when you begin to have the power to define yourself, define your destiny, right? Determine your destiny. You can say this is who we are. That's why I say that I'm African. I don't like saying that I'm an American, right? I don't care what their rules say. That's their rules, right? But I'm dealing with a set of rules that people who understand that we represent a colonized people and we want to free ourselves and we have a political identity, not a religious identity. This is why we can build with people who are Christian, Hebrew, African, Muslims. Religion don't matter, spiritual system doesn't matter. But when it comes to the material, the political and the economic power as African people, we want to come together and say, hey, we'd be able to practice our different religions, spiritual systems, and beliefs under the power of an African nation. That's what we want, and not an African nation that is tied to European colonialism, right? A liberated African nation. So I think fundamentally, like, we need to have these conversations with people in our family, with our community, but begin to build with organizations and other people who are thinking the same thing, and see how can we come together and begin to, build bigger institutions. So how can we charge colonialism build with the Black Alliance for Peace, or the Kwame Ture, not Kwame Ture, Sekou, no, what am I talking about? Thomas Sankara Center, right? How can we, build with them? That's located in Burkina Faso. How can we build with, the various organizations that are fighting for our liberation, instead of staying divided and everybody working in their pockets? I think the next stage of attaining, nationhood and Black power is for now the organization saying, okay, we're going to create a umbrella organization where we all come together and work together towards our advancement. So that has to be what we are working towards in the 21st century. What's that? Saw the contradictions quite early in life. I knew something was wrong, just didn't have an analysis of our situation at that point. It was my time in the Marine Corps that sparked my thirst for info. Yeah, I hear that. I'm glad I learned at a young age too. I mean, I was 18 when, before that, I was exposed to things, but it was given to me sort of in an entertaining way. So I didn't look at it as something that, I need to be involved in, whether it was the X movie or the Black Panther movie. These are things that I saw before I really came into consciousness, right? But it was just, I just looked at it as history. I didn't look at this as an ongoing fight and struggle for Black people. But I'm glad I did, put me on the path that I'm on.
And just to add to what Nkrumah said, right? Mr. Yarrow, how they call it, the folks who took me to the All African People Revolutionary Party, to the Pennsylvania chapter, right? He explained something to me, just how Nkrumah said it. He was in the Marine in Vietnam. They were the people in Vietnam. So according to him, when he was in Vietnam, he was fighting, right? And all he thought, he was fighting for his country, the United States. And that's what he said to me. He said, Frank, I thought I was fighting for my country. Like, I mean, man, you wouldn't tell me anything about America. Like, I would come for you. Like, and he said, I was on the battlefield, man. Like, I was doing everything that you think you can do as a Black man. Like, I was, yeah, like everything was American. We American, I want to go back home and be veteran. And he said that was what in his mind. Like, I want to go back home and be a veteran and be respected. Like, yeah, he's a veteran. Yeah, he's a veteran, right? So according to him, they caught some of these Vietnamese soldiers, and like there was like a prisoners of war, right? And one time he went to this Vietnamese guy and he sat with him, because according to him, he said, I don't know what came over him that day. He just went, and sat with this man to have a conversation with him. So according to him, while there, the man asked him, why are you here? Why did you leave your land far away and came to this land far away to come and fight? Why are you here? We are not fighting American. American is way far away. And you left America and came here in my home, in my country, and fighting me, and then saying you are fighting for American. Who are the American in Vienna here? Look, like Americans are in America, and you say you are fighting for your country. You are fighting for the interests of America. You are fighting for American citizens. Who are the American citizens in Vienna? No American citizens here. This is Vietnamese land. and you left your land. No Vietnamese army in America fought an American. And then, according to him, he said one thing the man told him, and at that, and it was at that point he left the army. He said the man told him, if you leave from here right now and go back, you will never be respected. You know, you will be like the black man in America who is not respected. You won't get respect. And then he said to him, first of all, we are the same. They don't, the white men don't respect you, they don't respect me. As a Vietnamese, they don't respect me, they don't respect you. We are the same. We are oppressed. And, you know, the nation you in, they don't respect you, they oppress you. And in fact, that's not your home. Your home is Africa. And he said, that's what the Vietnamese told him, and he educated him. Your homeland is Africa. The land you are fighting for, those people stole you from Africa and they brought you in that land for years, amount of years. They treated you inhumanely on plantation. And then after that, you become to fight for these same people who treated you like that, who ain't treated you, and, you know, who never free you. You fought for your freedom. And then you are now fighting for these same people who stole the land, and the people that was on that land, they killed that people, they killed those people, and then stole the land. And then now you are fighting for these same people, saying you are fighting for them. I mean, he said there was a whole lot of things this guy told him. And at that point, from that moment, he came back to the United States and resigned. And since then, he became a Pan-Africanist.
Yeah, sometimes we have to have those experiences, right? You know, it's different things for different people, man. But as long as we come around, but you know, the earlier the better. You know, the earlier the better, because it's going to be a whole. You're going to resist. You're going to keep resisting. You know, new ideas. The older you get, right? Because it's going to may cause you to change your value system. Is going to cause you to change your worldview, which ultimately means changing your behavior. And then, you know, when those two things contradict, it becomes difficult as far as like what you believe and what you and how you see the world, your theories of the world. But your behavior, if your behavior contradicts that, then, you know, you have to deal with that, you know, those eternal contradictions. And you know, it could be a lot, you know, for people. So, you know, the earlier better. That's why we think it's important to educate these babies at the end of the day, so we don't have another generation, you know, that's lost, you know, and is being influenced by what the bourgeois is telling them, you know, how they should live and how they should think. You know, the bourgeois are going to keep on selling us these, you know, these ideas and selling us this lifestyle, right? They're the greatest propagandists and advertisers of capitalist exploitation. So with that being said, though, man, I want to appreciate everybody for definitely continuing to join us, being a part of these discussions. If you're in the New York area today, March 2nd, we do have a program over in Brooklyn, DTR 360 Books, in collaboration with Abundance and Ujamaa Movement. It's going to be collaborating. I'll be in there. I'm always representing We Charge Colonialism. I'm one of the organizers as well of the event. So if you're in the New York area, definitely drop by. The information can be found on our Instagram page. So check that out. But it's going to be in Brownsville at the Brownsville Heritage House. So with that being said, again, thanks for tapping in. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to the channel. And we will see you next Saturday. We're going to continue with this book. All right, peace, Black Power, Uhuru.